Full circle CNN losing its mind, Blue and Oz style that Jack Smith gets Subway. Yeah, this is CNN's like I don't know, I was gonna say 9/11, but not really. CNN is going fucking crazy. Donald Trump is the target of a criminal probe. So they're just like losing their minds. Wait, what? On the one hand, the headline is technically accurate. On the other hand, 49% of Americans could not definitively say they'd support the North in the Civil War. What the fuck? Most Americans think they would have supported the North if they'd been alive during the Civil War. Wait. 51% of U.S. adult citizens said they would support the North. %, say neither. Who are you supporting in that situation? Why did somebody say neither? Like, so in that circumstance, you're like, abolition or not? I mean, this is like extreme centrism right here. You know, both sides had some good ideas. Yeah, like slavery and also the abolition of it, you know? Wild to me also that 8% of black Americans said they would support the South. 30% of black Americans said not sure, and 11% of black Americans said neither. What is happening, dude? If you want a better indication, if you want a better fucking indication that like American education and American culture and American existence is white supremacist to its fucking core, okay? To its goddamn core, there's no better statistic to look at than the 8% of black Americans saying they would support the South, 30% of black Americans saying not sure, and 11% of black Americans saying neither. Okay? Do you understand? Is this a good poll, though? I mean, I don't know what their sample size is, but it's a YouGov poll, and they're fine. Also, what is happening with 9% of Democrats who said they would support the South? Like, they're the Dixiecrats. This is fucking insane. The North won and did totally fail to do justice by black Americans during Reconstruction, so I don't blame the neithers. I don't think the neithers are thinking about it that much. I think the failure of the North to completely raise and restructure the South was the unironic reason as to why there are people that are saying neither or not sure, or 8% of black Americans are saying they would have supported the South, because it's the fundamental failure to like completely restructure society and allow white supremacist power holders to go back to their same go back to a similar hierarchy without any sort of like significant punishments beyond, oh, you just can't do slavery anymore. I don't think it's because like people were upset and that's why they're saying neither. They're like, oh man, I'm just like mad at either side on the situation. I think it's because of the failure of Reconstruction era, Reconstruction to actually reconstruct the South, that kept the maintenance of white supremacist values, white supremacist fundamentals, and white supremacist hierarchies. That is the reason why these are some serious white supremacist outcomes. Sample size was 1,000. That's an adequate sample size. I can't speak of the rest of the country, but here in the Southeast, the whole states' rights justification was pushed heavily in high/middle schools. Yeah, I think so too. About 31% of the people in the poll did not know the North won the Civil War. Holy fucking moly. If you combine unsure and Woodside, it's about 30% in all categories. 30% rule prevails. States' rights being a thing that people are educated on in American schooling, when it's clearly not the full picture. It's states' rights to own slaves and keep the maintenance of chattel slavery. The fact that there is even a counter to that, the fact that there is like this ahistorical approach to the Civil War, is directly a product of exactly what I'm talking about. And it was done deliberately by the Daughters of the Confederacy, a organization. Sole purpose is to whitewash white supremacist attitudes of the South, or to normalize it by way of education early on. Okay? That's what it is, and they very successfully did that. Abraham Lincoln is also very favorably viewed by 82% of Americans. Who was the 10% that says somewhat unfavorable? Harriet Tubman, 75%. It's just like the way they're teaching it in school. Look at that. 31% only view it as somewhat unfavorable. 44% view Robert E. Lee as a favorable, very or somewhat favorable figure. 44%. More people view Robert E. Lee favorably than Sherman. That's insane. Obviously, everybody views John Brown unfavorably. That's normal, to be fair. That's, they still do to this day. They consider him to be a terrorist and of the wrong kind, right? They consider him to be a mass murderer or whatever. It's like, yeah, he was mass murdering slavers, bitch. Shut the fuck up. But this is why we talk about statues being erected for these figures, okay? When you erect statues for Robert E. Lee, this is the goal. This is the not so hidden intentional goal of reconstructing a narrative, rewriting a narrative, whitewashing history. Okay? Happening with this fucking Apple Watch. It's like trying to, hey Siri, Civil War. But no, I don't want to. No, stop. Fuck. I can't say those two words together. It just like automatically triggers the watch. I need to fix that. Anyway, speaking of which, let's get to Donald Trump. He says he's the target of a criminal probe into the 2020 election. He got a message from Jack Smith. He got it like, I think over the weekend, but he chose to reveal it yesterday. Probably because he wants to get in the news cycle again. Probably because he doesn't personally fully understand how much he's fucked. Like, I assume he doesn't get it. He got it on Sunday night, and he recently mentioned it. So let's take a look.
What can you tell us about, number one, what Trump is saying, and number two, what you have heard about this supposedly him putting this out, that he is the target of the January 6th investigation?
Yeah, guys, so we have been watching to see what's bubbling behind the scenes, because it's felt like something has been ripe in this January 6th investigation being conducted by the special counsel's office for some time now. And indeed, we are getting this statement from Donald Trump, posting on Truth Social, also sending out a statement saying that the Justice Department, the special counsel Jack Smith, has sent him a letter stating that he is a target of the January 6th grand jury investigation. So that's a federal investigation that has been for months looking into both his actions in the White House, other actions that he may have taken after the 2020 election, as well as actions of others around him, fake electors, all kinds of different schemes that were to support Donald Trump and overturn his loss in the election. those things had been investigated, and he is saying he has received a target letter giving him 4 days to appear before a grand jury. We believe that grand jury would be in Washington, D.C., if he would choose. And I should step back and explain what a target letter is, because it is one of the things that the Justice Department does at the very end of an investigation. It lets someone know, yes, we are looking at potentially charging you. We are very close to a charging decision, and we want to make sure you have your rights preserved, and that if you want to come in as the target of this investigation, as someone who could be charged, very likely would be charged, if you want to come in and explain yourself on the record to the federal grand jury that has been looking at you as the potential target, as the person possibly charged, you have the opportunity to. And so Donald Trump is saying that he received this notice on Sunday night and is being given the 4 days to consider whether he wants to come into the grand jury. Like I said, one of the last things that typically happens in an investigation like this, a very similar thing played out in the weeks before Donald Trump was indicted in the Southern District of Florida in a separate investigation, in that documents investigation that we're also watching for activity on today.
And on that one,
I did everything right and they indicted me.
You know what I mean? Like, it was kind of fucked up. Just saying. He did everything right, and they indicted him.
I did everything right, and they indicted me.
January 6th investigation, one where we've watched the grand jury closely. It appears it is coming to an end. And now this very firm signal from the Justice Department, from the special counsel, that Donald Trump may be indicted.
I did everything right, and they indicted me.
No, I don't have a soundboard. I literally just manually turn it on every single time. I like Google it and I manually click on it every single time. But it's worth it because it's one of the greatest sound bites of all time.
Related to January 6th, his actions after the 2020 election, and giving him a final opportunity to come in and speak to the grand jury if he chooses. He did not choose to do so in the Florida investigation, also conducted by Smith's office, related to the documents held at Mar-a-Lago after the presidency. It does not appear that he is happy with receiving this news. He's quite offended, saying it's horrifying news, and that it happened on Sunday night when he received notice from his attorneys. He was with his family. And so at this point in time, there isn't really an expectation Trump would go in and speak to a grand jury, but we are going to be watching very closely what happens in the federal courthouse in Washington in the coming days. We know that there's a grand jury meeting today that has been investigating Trump and January 6th, and it sounds very likely that they also may be meeting this Thursday and could be looking at a potential indictment of the former president for actions he took at the end of his presidency to hold on to power.
Caitlin, thank you so much for bringing us that. Just to recap the big news that we're laying out in this social media post, Donald Trump says Sunday night he received a letter from the special counsel saying that he is a target of the January 6th grand jury investigation. And now, obviously, as Caitlin is laying out, very big questions of what this means going forward.
Let me read the Truth Social post here so people can figure out what exactly was said. Again, this is said by Donald Trump. At this point, he is the source of this information. He wrote, deranged Jack Smith, the prosecutor with Joe Biden's DOJ, sent a letter. Again, it was...
They're not doing the voice, though. Like at this point, I think news media has to fucking hire like a Trump impersonator so that they're constantly doing his voice every time they read his messages, because you got to do that. You got to do that. Bar Vision, explaining how I see the world. Thank you for 40K subs on YouTube. Says Luffy is a terrorist father figure, brother, and his inspiration are all terrorists and freedom fighters. Luffy is a royal terrorist. Yeah. All of the fucking anime explainers agree with me. I don't give a fuck what some random Twitter account says. Every single time they talk about it, every single time they talk about the Luffy shit, like they just look bad. Fuck. The health data kind of sucks, dude. It says, I'm looking at my like stand minutes, and it says I only stood up yesterday for 4 total minutes. Like, that's not true. You know what I mean? Oh, wait, never mind. Oh, that's just today. I'm looking at my health shit. Like exercise minutes today, 4 minutes of exercise so far. Yesterday, 44 minutes of exercise total. The cop threatened me with what? Is there like a fitness app for the Apple Watch? Is that what I'm looking at the health one? Maybe that's the problem. Because it's like, what are you trying to find? I'm trying to find like, I want this to like actively log all of my data, all of my moves, like when I'm moving around. You know what I mean? And it's kind of annoying that it thinks that I'm not walking more than I was last month when I definitely am walking more, because I'm like actively walking on the walking desk. You absolutely murdered that doggy with training today. Oh my gosh, she's so cute, passed out like that. Yeah, I walked around a lot. Missed this gem of a dono last night. Shows up in health. The fitness app is for tracking your calories, standing hours, and exercise minutes. It's fitness on your phone. Your wrists are on the desk a lot of times. Notice this at work too, because I have a standing desk. I'm pretty sure that it only measures standing time by how much your watch is at your side. Apple Watch's stand data is weird. It won't count if you're just standing. It'll most reliably count it if you're moving while standing. That is weird. You know how big dog puppies can get injured if they walk too much? Yeah, I'm not walking that much, dude. Chill out.
Sunday night, stating that I am a target, and targets in all caps, of the January 6th grand jury investigation, and giving me a very short 4 days to report to the grand jury, which almost always means an arrest and an indictment. That, again, was the statement posted by Donald Trump himself, who is right now the source of this information, that he is a target of the January 6th investigation, which is a major development. If so, let's go to Paula Reed. I understand we have Paula Reed, who's in Florida, who can weigh in on this. Paula.
It is incredibly significant because Special Counsel Jack Smith is conducting 2 separate investigations into the former president and some of his associates. One of those is into the possible mishandling of classified documents. That's why we're in Florida today. There is a hearing, the first hearing before the Trump-appointed judge who's going to oversee that case. In court today, we expect them to talk about a trial date, which is significant because at the core of Trump's legal strategy is an effort to delay this trial at least until after the 2024 election. Now, he's also under investigation for efforts to overturn the 2020 election, and it was not clear. It was just not clear if he would be charged. But as he indicates in this statement, which we have not verified independently with the special counsel's office, he suggests that he has received a target letter, which he is correct, usually means that an indictment is going to be coming soon. Now, he has the opportunity to go before the grand jury. It is unlikely he will do that. He did not do that after receiving a target letter in the Mar-a-Lago investigation. But it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next few hours here, because his legal team, they're expected in court here in Florida in just a few short hours, likely going to face a lot of questions from reporters who are here to cover his other ongoing criminal trial.
All right, Paula Reed in Florida. Stand by. Much more for you in just a moment.
All right, let's go to our Ellie Honig, who is here to give us some sense of what all of this means. First of all, Donald Trump making very clear this is his statement. We have not confirmed that this actually has happened yet, but saying he's received this target letter and that it definitely means he's going to be arrested and charged. Is he correct?
He's mostly correct, assuming that this is true, assuming that DOJ has actually sent a formal target letter. What that means is that DOJ believes Donald Trump is a, quote, putative, meaning a very likely defendant, and that DOJ has evidence linking him to a crime. You do not have to send a target letter at the Justice Department, but it's common practice. And we know Jack Smith sends target letters because within a week or so of the Mar-a-Lago indictment, Jack Smith did, in fact, send a target letter to Donald Trump. So assuming that has happened again here, this is a very telling moment into this investigation.
What's the process now?
So the process is Jack Smith has sent this letter. Donald Trump will, again, assuming the truth of this, be given 4 days to appear in the grand jury if he wants. He will not do that. That would be incredibly self-damaging to do that. Jack Smith now can control if and when the grand jury votes on an indictment. Assuming he gets to a point where he believes I've given the grand jury my evidence, Jack Smith can then go into the grand jury with a draft indictment saying, here are the defendants I propose to charge, here are the charges I propose to bring, and then instruct the grand jury as to the law, and then take a vote from the grand jury. And assuming they vote yes, which grand juries almost always do, then we will have an indictment. Now, it could be sealed for a while, meaning there could be a moment in time where we know that there's an indictment, but we don't actually get to see it. So that's what we're looking at. And again, according to this, on a fairly short time frame.
In the Mar-a-Lago documents case, he received a target letter. He was indicted.
Within days.
Within days. In this case, he is saying he received a target letter. That is why there is an expectation that he could be indicted. In the Mar-a-Lago documents case, his lawyers also went in to meet with Justice Department lawyers to basically talk him out of, charging, which is what happens. We don't know if there's been that meeting. Would that happen before or after a target letter typically?
So there's no rule on that. You typically would give a person's defense lawyers a last chance to come in and try to talk you out of it. That did happen in the Mar-a-Lago case. We don't know if that's happened here. It's possible that that happened, and we don't know about it publicly. It's possible they did it by a phone call or a Zoom or some location that we weren't able to spot.
Okay, this is like the dumbest angle to cover the story on, actually. But hey, trembling is the best way to lose weight in The Sims.
More now in the break.
Like the video game. If you care, your mention on the flagrant pod is at 100.
To separate. And I think they're less powerful when they're separate.
The same I want, and then also I'm like
in 1 hour and 21 minutes.
Yeah, put ist at the end. It's kind of
they brand themselves.
Yeah,
I am a leftist or whatever. I don't hear that term like I hear Christian conservative, which is on the conservative.
Southern Democrat, correct? Dixiecrats.
Oh yeah, that's probably a similar thing.
In the 80s, I think Reagan was a Southern Democrat before he was a Republican. I might be wrong, but I know
70s.
70s, sorry.
Yeah,
but I mean,
he was
Reagan was a labor union leader, baby.
a Hollywood fucking Democrat until he ran.
Yeah. But I think there was a term Southern Democrat that was like sort of right, the more right of left.
And then there was like Reagan was ever a Democrat.
Ravik, so thank you for the 5 gifted.
Interesting. But was that a function of just being in Hollywood?
I don't know.
Like being an actor?
Like I think Hassan Piker would swirling around different definitions, and Democrat and Republican have changed polls so many times in history. It's just.
I think Hassan Piker would consider himself a leftist, is my understanding.
Yeah, and I would say he's pretty extreme in his.
Leftist, yeah.
But mostly on like financial and like fiscal policy.
Yeah, I'm
also
extreme.
Like, I would say racial and
I think he's
gender
progressive,
policies.
but I don't think he's like so like socially radical on those ideas. Like I think like he would come on here and like joke with us.
I think he would joke, yeah, but I also think that he like believes very strongly about all those things, and there's no wiggle room on his beliefs whatsoever.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
I wonder what he means by that.
I'm trying to think of like Sam Cedar or something. Like would consider themselves like a leftist.
I don't know.
Destiny might be a leftist.
That's the guy that went on PBD's podcast, right? Sam Cedar?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Whereas,
yeah. And so, that's the way I understand it.
Like, I don't think that.
The only time I have no wiggle room is at the top of the hour when there's a 3-minute ad break. Okay? And even then, the wiggle room, I guess, is that if you subscribe for $5 or for free with a Twitch Prime, you won't see the top of the hour ad break. That's it. Ravexo, Matt NLT, Sakura Gore, thank you for the 5 get the subs, allowing 15 total people to no longer see the ads at the top of the hour. Look who it is. Look who came around. Oh, you want the bully stick? You can get it. Go get it. Go get it. Kaya. Okay. Okay, never mind. Anyway, here's the 3-minute ad break now. I'm walking at a more comfortable pace today because I want to keep walking at like a really, like I'm walking at a 2.5 kilometer pace instead. Or I think 3. Where am I at? Yeah, I'll up it to 3. Instead of the 4 or sometimes 6 I do. The fastest it goes is 6 kilometers. The treadmill expensive? I think the treadmill is like $350. It's cheaper than I thought it was going to be. But it's on the more expensive side as far as desk treadmills goes, I think. I like it. I mean, I've been using it every day. Let's see if it breaks or not. You know what I mean?
Hassan would be tolerant of beliefs that, even if they're like, for example, someone's religious beliefs, if he found them intolerant. Mm-hmm. And that's, I think, leftist.
Yeah.
So if there were some Muslim beliefs or there's some Christian beliefs that went against some of his leftist beliefs, I think he'd be like, yeah, you got to change that. Your religion is antiquated. It's some goofy shit you believe in. You got to get that the fuck out of here. Where I think a liberal, if they're actually being a liberal, they'd be like, yeah, I don't agree with you, but I'm open to your different lifestyle.
Yeah. And I think that's silly. Like the way I recognize it, I mean, he's not wrong. Yeah. And it's not even just Christianity, it's Islam too. Like, if someone is trying to impose their backwards, antiquated ass ideals by weaponizing their religion, you know, I'm not gonna let it slide. I will definitely criticize it.
I have to accept you for that.
Mm-hmm. I think conservatives, it might have ended up backfiring, but for a long time, they could just tie themselves to religion and then get a lot of votes that way and swing some elections. And now I think it's becoming divided to the point that it might fracture the party. I don't know. I mean, I'm talking out of my ass to a degree, but it just seems like libertarian and Christian conservatives are like, these are different things now. Yeah. Very different things.
Interesting, yeah. Do you want to talk about this Tamagotchi girlfriend trend?
Okay. All right, getting back to it. Hear how Trump and allies are handling reported target letter.
Donald Trump officially the target of another criminal investigation. CNN's Kristen Holmes is closely following how the former president is dealing with it.
I'm not going to lie, walking at this pace is a little boring, though. Like, it's at least more fun when I'm, like, really going fast, like a little bit faster. But I guess I could do it for a lot longer.
It's growing legal jeopardy. So you're getting word now of an urgent effort, I understand, to figure out if anyone else has received a target letter.
That's right, Anderson. As soon as they got this target letter, they started making calls to lawyers, to allies, anyone involved in the January 6th investigation who might have an answer as to who, if anyone else, got a target letter. Now, I am told as of now, they have not identified anyone else who got a target letter, but of course, they are still making the calls. The reason that they are doing this is it's going to give them some sort of insight into what the evidence is against Donald Trump and what exactly a trial or charges might look like against the former president. And part of this is because some members of his team were surprised at the timing of the target letter. Now, they have long anticipated that he was going to be indicted several more times, but they were looking at a timeline for January 6th in terms of target letter and the movement there being in the fall, not being right now. I'd actually been talking to one lawyer who said they thought that things had cooled off in that investigation. So a lot of calls going on right now trying to figure out exactly what this is going to look like, the timing on all of this. And we do expect to hear from former President Donald Trump tonight. He is on the campaign trail, a reminder that he is again running for president. He will be in Iowa doing a town hall. We'll obviously be watching that very closely to see what he says about this.
All right, Kristen, appreciate it. Join me now in New York, Jimmy Gankell, Van Jones, Caitlin Collins, Ellie Honig, former Georgia Lieutenant Governor Jeff Duncan, and former White House Communications Director Alyssa Farr Griffin. Ellie, just on the target letter, would they send them out to anybody who was going to get one at the same time?
You should. Yeah. I mean, it's good practice. If you intend to indict a bunch of people together, you should notify them with a target letter all at once. And I think one of the big questions is who else, if anyone else, has received these target letters? And just to be clear, DOJ does not have to send out target letters, but they often do. And we know Jack Smith does because he did before the Mar-a-Lago indictments. And once you get a target letter, you are a very likely.
And the purpose of the target letter is to inform the defendant what's about to happen and also give them an opportunity if they want to testify before the grand jury.
Exactly. Or if the lawyers want to come in and try to make any other pitch. So it's interesting that as far as we know right now, Donald Trump's the only target letter we know of, and prosecutors have a lot of discretion in how they shape their indictments. Who do you charge in which indictment? Do you roll them out sort of seriatim, one after the other, or all at once? It could be that they just want one big indictment to focus on Trump, to minimize the distractions and the paperwork that will go with it. And then there's other people perhaps who will be referred to as co-conspirators or perhaps will be indicted separately or later.
Alyssa Farr Griffin, you're just joining us. What stands out to you today?
Well, looking at the politics of this, I mean, it's just stunning that we're now talking about a potential third indictment, second federal, of the former president who still remains the Republican frontrunner. And I just, as somebody who spoke out the day after January 6th and has continued to since, I can't imagine how different the political landscape would look right now if Republicans stayed the course as they after January 6th with what they were saying. Nikki Haley condemning him at the RNC winter meeting, nearly every prominent Republican saying we need to turn the page on Trump. But because so many people flipped that language and did a 180 on him, he's pulling ahead of anyone despite these investigations going. And I don't know that anyone can bank on the idea of him being in prison, keeping him from winning the nomination.
Jeff Duncan, you certainly wish that they had stayed the course as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it would certainly have our party in a totally different position than it is today. You know, January 6th is the headline on all of this target letters and indictments that are out there. But this was a process that led up to January 6th. And I think that's what's going to continue to unpack. And I think we're just missing an easy opportunity to beat the least popular president, sitting president in maybe U.S. history, in Joe Biden. And we just continue to miss it and miss it and miss it. I hope we course correct here. I hope we get to a pivot point where folks wake up on the Republican side and say, you know what, we got real problems, Republican Party has real solutions, and we're going to move forward.
Jamie, I know you're hearing from some Republicans.
We got a statement from former appellate court judge Michael Ludig, who became well known for testifying for the January 6th committee. He played a critical role in advising former Vice President Mike Pence that he could not delay Congress. Let's just remember before I read this statement, he is one of the most conservative Republicans out there. And he says there is not an attorney general or special counsel of either party who would not bring charges against the former president for his efforts on January 6th to overturn the 2020 presidential election. He goes on, he, meaning Trump, has dared, taunted, provoked, and goaded DOJ to prosecute him for his offenses on and relating to January 6 for 2.5 years. The former president has left Jack Smith no choice but to bring charges, lest the former president make a mockery of the Constitution of the United States and the rule of law. I spoke to him a few minutes ago. He expects an indictment.
Has he said anything yet? The only reason why we know that this is even happening is because he revealed it on Truth Social. So he has said something. He has said a lot. Most importantly, he said,
I did everything right and they indicted me.
How do you respect?
Yeah. That's what he said.
Within days, he does not think Trump is going to go in front of the grand jury.
And yet, so many Republicans are not echoing that. So many Republicans are standing by the former president.
No question. As you know, we just heard whether they are scared of Donald Trump or whether they want his base to get elected. his numbers seem to be going up every time he gets indicted.
But we definitely need more of that. I mean, that's what you would expect. I mean, if you gone to sleep 4 years ago, 5 years ago, and woke up and it turned out that there was somebody who clearly on national television was allowing an insurrection to happen, didn't do anything about it, and this person was now being charged by the Department of Justice, you would say, thank goodness. Mm-hmm. Thank goodness rule of law applies to everyone. Thank goodness somebody has looked into the facts here. Thank goodness. Instead, you hear this appalling silence and then people coming out and trying to excuse the inexcusable. We need more of that.
But also look at how
appalling
Trump is
silence.
talking about January 6th even. I mean, he's saying that Trump made a mockery of the Constitution with those efforts and what he did that day. Trump still talks about January 6th all the time. When he's at these campaign trail stops, when he's out there, he essentially is reframing it. He calls the people who were there that day breaking into the Capitol patriots, and you have not seen the rest of the 2024 field at all come out. I mean, a high school student in New Hampshire asked Ron DeSantis about his thoughts on January 6th recently, and his first response was, I wasn't anywhere near Washington that day. And as Chris Christie said, was he alive that day? Did he have a TV?
I love the Republican answers like, I wasn't there, I promise. I was doing other stuff. It's like as though the first indication is to clear your own name, because technically any single person could have been marching, you know what I mean? I was doing other stuff. Why are you asking that? Fuck you. Libs never change. I mean, this guy is now like one of Elon's main guys making money off Twitter, so they got unbanned, and now they're making hundreds of thousands of dollars a month on Twitter
Was he
posting.
watching? I mean, everyone saw what was happening. So I do think it's just a sign of that Trump hasn't veered away from talking about this. I mean, he's talking about pardoning the people who are convicted for crimes related to January 6th. So he hasn't really shied away from this.
Didn't he make an album with some of the prisoners?
He played their music at his rallies. I mean, he's completely recast this as something entirely differently. And so, I mean, that also speaks to the fact that if he is going to get indicted on this.
So what happens next? I mean, from a legal standpoint, how much time does he have to respond, or does he need to respond at all? When do you think an indictment will come?
So according to Donald Trump, he's been given 4 days from Sunday, which takes us to Thursday. Really, at any point after Thursday, we could see an indictment. It's important to understand, it is real quick and easy for a federal prosecutor to finish the process of getting an indictment. In the federal system, you are allowed to summarize. So I think what will happen is a prosecutor will stand in front of the grand jury, say, here's a summary, here's a reminder of all the evidence that you've heard, all the testimony you've heard. You can do that in an hour or so. Then you have to present the actual draft indictment. You have to say, here are the X number of charges, and here are whoever the defendants are, and here are the elements of law that you have to find by probable cause, lower standard, then ultimately they have to prove at trial, which of course is beyond a reasonable doubt. And that's it. Then the grand jury votes, and then the indictment will be in the prosecutor's hands. Now, important to know, it may be sealed for some short amount of time, meaning the indictment may be voted on as an indictment, and then it will be filed, docketed with the court, but we won't be able to see it for some amount of time. In fact, with the Mar-a-Lago case, there was a couple days or a day or so where we couldn't see
Trump
it.
told us. That's how we found out he was indicted, because
Exactly.
he told us.
Exactly.
Republican race for president, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is visiting the early primary state of South Carolina, trying to close the gap with the
We're going to talk about the North Korean soldier. We talked about the Civil War stuff. CNN or TMZ?
Smith is tight-lipped. He was spied.
CNN is going fucking crazy mode on Jack Smith as well, the other side of the indictment. Doing everything right, and they're indicting him as well.
Of course, on the special counsel's side, that's the Justice Department and its appointee, Jack Smith. Jack Smith is tight-lipped. He was spotted today by CNN.
Wait, little Rhonda is live on CNN with Jake Tapper? Really? Are you sure? No, he's not.
Conspiracy to defraud the United States, the idea of the false slate of electors as alleged, the notion of leaning on Vice President Mike Pence. and others to try to obstruct a congressional proceeding.
Oh my God, exclusive interview with Governor Ron DeSantis. What the
What
fuck?
is being investigated here. And you can better
Let's go.
believe that when you're talking
Little
about all
Rhonda.
the different cases, some involving the state level in Manhattan, others involving a looming potential indictment in Georgia, and of course, a federal indictment in Florida, and maybe one on the horizon for Trump, there is not the requirement of judges to coordinate between these cases, but a defendant is going to have the ability to prepare and adequately be a part of the defense. This is not like the E. Jean Carroll lawsuit, of course, where Trump did not even appear in the courtroom. He would be required to be there, and Jack Smith, in at least the prior cases, said they need about 20 days or so. That means off the campaign trail. That means actually being present. And so there are so many different moving parts here, but the continuous thread here seems to be grand jury testimony from those within the orbit of Trump, not a communication line open between so many others to figure out who has said what. And we still don't know, of course, Jake, who has cooperated with the federal government.
All right, Laura Coates and Jeffrey Sloman, thanks to both of you. Appreciate it. More here from Columbia, South Carolina, and my exclusive interview with the Florida governor and 2024 Republican presidential candidate Ron DeSantis, who filed his South Carolina presidential paperwork just today. And this just in, we've learned that the Michigan Attorney General has just charged 16 so-called fake electors in the 2020 election. This is just coming in. We're going to have more from Columbia, South Carolina next.
All right, this is starting in a second. Let's continue watching this and then...
Going to Subway for lunch, picking up a sandwich, leaving, and not saying a word.
No way. I can't believe Jack Smith is outside in front of cameras. That's crazy.
So no comment from the special counsel's office on whether they plan to indict Donald Trump and when that is potentially going to happen for the second time for a federal case.
Target. And just one last.
John King marvels. Jack Smith going to Subway today is a message to Donald Trump. No, man, it's just he's going to Subway. It's a message to America that Jack Smith is boring as fuck and eats like the absolute worst type of fast food you could have.
Point. Jack Smith, remember when the classified documents target letter, when Trump announced that, there was a lot of commentary. It was Jack Smith making a mistake here. Is he leaving this all to Donald Trump? And then they released the indictment and we all said, wow. Wow, we read it, we saw the documentation, we saw the level of detail. Jack Smith going to Subway today is a message to Donald Trump. Donald Trump tries to intimidate people. He tries to bully people. He tries to scare you away. That was Jack Smith with no words and a simple $5 sub in his hand saying, I'm here, I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah,
they also are on the fucking East Coast. You're close enough in proximity to a real goddamn sub, a hero, a hoagie, whatever you want to fucking call it. The fact that he went to Subway implies that he's an idiot, okay? Implies, in my opinion, a genuine failure. Like, I am actually more worried about this court case. I'm more worried about this investigation than I was before. Okay? I'm gonna be honest with you. Subway is fucking awful. There are a million other better alternatives in the East Coast in general. Washington, D.C., not so much, but still, go to fucking Jersey Mike's. Fuck it. Go to... What's the place that does it really fast? They whip them up. They whip the sandwiches up real fast. Jimmy John's. The notion, like, go to a Wawa, go to a Jimmy John's. Like, the idea, the mentality signals to me that he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. He's, like, really stupid.
The imagery was intentional and spoke volumes.
It really is.
Subway's way better than Jimmy John's, you fake leftist. No, it's not. You're out of your fucking mind. They don't even have real meat.
Smith can't resist a $5 food. Turns out even Jack Smith can't resist a $5 footlong. That's according to what we see right there.
I hate to say it, but like the newsbuster Andys are fucking right. Like the coverage on this is so stupid.
Our new and exclusive CNN video of the special counsel at Subway.
Like frustratingly
declining,
dumb.
though, to respond to reporters' questions about today's big news. A target letter sent to the former president of the United States. CNN's Evan Perez was there trying to track down the special counsel. I won't ask you all of the less important things about what he got and how he paid and all that. But what is important is the imagery here. They clearly wanted us to see him and that image to be very different from what we saw in the former president's post, which is that he's a deranged individual.
Yeah, I mean, look, I can count probably 5 or 6 sandwich shops between his office and that location that he was at earlier today. He stood in line just like everybody else, and I couldn't tell whether it was a foot long or was it a. Or
There's
was
something
it a 6-inch
seriously
sub.
wrong
But
with these people. Like, they have a mental illness, I think. There were 5 other shops he could have gone to, and he chose to go to the one that's serving $5 footlongs, but hasn't served $5 footlongs since 2018.
The GOP frontrunner, former President Donald Trump.
All right, we're going to get a little briefer on little Rhonda. I'm going to go pee.
DeSantis just fired nearly 10 staff members, and his fundraising has not met expectations. Ed O'Keefe is in Columbia, South Carolina, the state capital. Ed, good morning.
Nate, good to see you. Ron DeSantis is stuck in second place, but he is plowing ahead. He'll be here at State Party GOP headquarters later this morning to file paperwork for the state's early primary next year, the first Republican presidential contender to do so. In other words, he's not backing off.
Hello, South Carolina.
Oh, God. That's terrible. All right, I got to pee real quick. I'll be back in 1 second. Okay, real bad.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis' strategy isn't only to win the Republican nomination, but also make sure his party can beat President Biden.
If this election is a referendum on Biden's failures, and if we offer a positive alternative, we're going to win, and we're going to win big.
Today in South Carolina, he's set to unveil a new plan to tackle, quote, woke ideology in the military.
As commander-in-chief, I'm ripping all the woke out of the military, and I'm getting focused back on mission accomplishment.
DeSantis is the closest GOP candidate to former President Donald Trump, but continues trailing by double digits in polling and fundraising. Still, some South Carolina voters say there's plenty of time.
I just think he's got to keep doing what he's doing and get his message out and do it the way he's doing it.
Trump should fight Democrats.
Back in Iowa, that message is on display in a controversial new ad taking aim at Trump for recent comments critical of popular Republican Governor Kim Reynolds.
Now she wants to remain neutral.
CBS News has learned the ad, being run by a DeSantis super PAC, has used artificial intelligence to imitate Trump's voice, a tactic the Trump campaign slammed as a desperate attempt to deceive the American public. This as there's a growing push for a potential third-party option. A bipartisan organization called No Labels is pushing to get on the ballot for a possible unity ticket.
We're here to make sure that
Dude, that's so funny. Back up, Kaya. Kaya, it's going to start moving. Back up. There you go. Okay. Resuming my walk.
American people have an option. At a town hall meeting in New Hampshire, West Virginia Democratic Senator Joe Manchin didn't rule out a third-party run.
I've never been in any race I've ever.
Yeah, this is bullshit, okay? It's fucking bullshit. Let's be real. All right.
Director of Strategic Communications for Donald Trump. Alyssa, thanks for joining us. So given your experience in the White House, what's your reaction to the special counsel apparently telling Trump that he's a target in this investigation as they move closer to bringing charges related to the attempt to overturn the election?
Listen, I'm not surprised that the special counsel's decided to move forward. We all saw what happened on January 6th. We knew what was leading up to it. We heard the different efforts to defraud Americans by overturning the election results, the incitement of the violence at the Capitol. So I think it's prudent. It's the right decision. But what I'm still stunned by is in the year of our Lord 2023, most Republicans, even those running against Donald Trump, are not willing to just say the God's honest truth of what we know about January 6th and actually use what may end up being a third indictment to try to chip away at his support and try to move ahead in the polls.
Well, that's my next question for you, because you said we all saw what happened on January 6th and in the months leading up to it, of course. But with the exception of Chris Christie, Will Hurd, and Asa Hutchinson, the Republicans running against Donald Trump aren't really acknowledging what you acknowledge, what I saw with my own eyes. You heard my interview, the excerpt of my interview with Ron DeSantis, Governor DeSantis, talking about this issue, and he repeated a now common Republican talking point about the weaponization of the Justice Department, using the legal apparatus to score political points. He also said, in his view, it would be bad for the country if Trump were indicted for his role in and around the insurrection. We played all of that earlier in the show. How do you see those arguments? What did you think of his response?
Listen, as Republicans, we can't say we're the party of law and order, but then turn a blind eye to both the classified documents mishandling, but also the egregious actions around January 6th. Most elected Republicans in Washington, D.C. knew what happened January 6th. Kevin McCarthy said, I'm done with this guy. We remember the denunciation.
I'm shocked to find out that the Republicans are at it again. They're hypocritical, guys. They're not the actual party of law and order, it seems. It's crazy.
But they went back to Donald Trump. I don't know if it was the fundraising that he carries, the name recognition with the base, but we know what the reality is.
But they don't factor in ever. But they never factor in.
I did everything right and they indicted me.
You know what I mean?
I would simply say this. Let's put the shoe on the other foot. If this was Barack Obama or Joe Biden who incited January 6th, I assure you every Republican congressional committee would be investigating it and called for him to be charged.
Alyssa Farrah-Griffin, thanks so much. Today, I sat down here in Columbia, South Carolina with Florida Governor Ron DeSantis for this exclusive interview. This was just minutes after he had unveiled a sweeping new military policy. DeSantis said in that announcement speech that his proposals are intended to, quote, rip the woke out of the U.S. military.
It's a military that has been ordered by civilian officials to pursue political ideology, to pursue social experimentation, to be yet another institution in American life that gets infected with the woke mind virus.
So the DeSantis plan includes ending all groups and positions in the Pentagon that focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI, banning transgender service members from serving as they identify, ending funding for what DeSantis calls, quote, activist climate change programs, unquote. DeSantis also wants to reinstate all service members who were removed for refusing the COVID vaccine, and he wants to punish any retired generals and admirals who speak out harshly against the sitting president or Congress or other officials. DeSantis says the things he wants to eliminate are harming the readiness of the U.S. military.
This is changing the character of the military. It's changing the culture of our services, and it's creating a situation in which great warriors have been driven away and recruiting is at an all-time low post-abolition of the draft and the Vietnam conflict.
It is true that recruitment is at a low, but we should note Pentagon officials repeatedly reject almost all of those accusations. And that's where Governor DeSantis and I started our discussion today.
Well, get to the good stuff.
Let's talk about this sweeping new military policy you proposed that, in your words, will rip the woke out of the military. The Pentagon response is that Army and Marines readiness is the best it's been in years, and reenlistment in the Army is the best it's been in years. So their argument might be, in response, what problem are you trying to solve?
Well, why do we have the worst recruiting that we've had since the Vietnam conflict? Why have great warriors being driven off, such as with the COVID-19 shot mandates? These were people that had been performing admirably. A lot of them had COVID. They had natural immunity. They were told, take this shot or leave. So I think you've had a big problem
You're a fucking idiot.
With morale. You
You're
clearly
a fucking
have
dumbass.
a problem with recruiting.
The military does so much worse than just vaccines.
These recruiting levels
With respect to vaccines,
crisis.
they literally do it
Why
one
is
day
that
at a time.
The case? I think it's because people see the military
do all the vaccines.
losing its way.
It's a part of
not
military
focusing
readiness.
on the mission and focusing on a lot of these other things, which, man, we see that in other aspects of society as well. People want to join the military, I think, because they think it's something different, and I think some of the civilian leaders in the military are trying to have the military mimic corporate America academia. That's ultimately not going to work.
So I hear you. Recruitment, without question, is a problem. The Army did this survey. I'll give you a copy of it if you want. They haven't released it, but I got my hands on a copy. And it surveyed people, I think 16 to 28 barriers to service, and beyond the ones such as don't want to die, don't want to be injured, don't want to be away from my family. The biggest issues were the number 2 issue, women and racial or ethnic minorities are discriminated against in the Army. Wokeness is listed here, but it's only It's only number 9. So that would suggest that wokeness is not as big.
Well, but I think there's an issue about, like, not everyone really knows what wokeness is. I mean, I've defined it, but a lot of people who rail against wokeness can't even define it. And so I think it's a sense of, you know, this is not something that's holding true to the core martial values that make the military unique. And I can tell you, the veterans, you don't have to look far and wide. Go to a VFW hall, go to an American Legion. There's huge amount of concern about the direction that the military is going with all this. And here's the thing, things like DEI and all that stuff, it hasn't worked in other aspects of society. It very well may be on the constitutional chopping block in light of the Supreme Court's decision on racial discrimination in higher education. And so it's not a model that I think is going to be successful in the military. And so we're going to do what has been successful in the past, and I think you're going to see better recruiting as a result.
So the Pentagon says that they do try to achieve diversity in recruiting, but not when it comes to promotions. That's all merit-based.
Well, I mean, I think that we have seen standards watered down in different situations. I think that that's probably not accurate. Obviously, they're going to say they're doing a good job. I mean, we get that. That's going to be their thing, but I don't think that that's in tune with reality.
So let's turn to foreign policy, because obviously that goes hand in hand with military policy in many ways. As a congressman in 2015, you strongly backed arming Ukraine after Russia invaded and seized Crimea. As a presidential candidate, you've said that the conflict is not a vital national interest. So as president, what will your policy be? Will you want to stop arming Ukraine? Will you stop financial support for Ukraine?
So first, a vital national interest to me means we would potentially send troops there. And I don't think anybody wants to see troops in Ukraine, and I would believe that in 2015 as well. It's more of a secondary or tertiary interest. So my policy is going to be very simple. Our number one threat to our country is from China in terms of foreign threat. We also have a threat of being able to not secure our own border. Tens of thousands of people are dying every year because the cartels are running fentanyl. So you got to be strong at home if you want to be strong abroad. We are going to approach the world instead of Europe being the focus like it has been since World War II, and it was understandable why it would be after World War II. NATO, stopping the Soviets, I get it. But now the Asia-Pacific really needs to be, to our generation, what Europe was to the post-World War II generation. And so what we're doing is how much hard power can we marshal as much as possible to deter China. I think we're in a situation now with how weak we've been that we are going towards maybe having a conflict with China. I think the way to deter that conflict with China is to be strong. So I would have the Europeans do more in Europe. That's more in their backyard. That's more of an interest for them. You know, I would be willing to be helpful to try to bring it to a conclusion there, but I am not going to diminish our stocks and not send to Taiwan. I'm not going to make us less capable to respond to exigencies. And you got to care at least as much about your own border as you do about foreign borders.
So when you talk about trying to bring an end to the conflict, would you push Zelensky to make concessions to Russia to cede land that Russia seized in its attack?
So what I would say is what the goal should be a sustainable, enduring peace in Europe, but that one that does not reward aggression. And there's going to be different levers that you're going to be able to pull. We will pull some levers against Russia. We're going to be much more aggressive on energy and export, because I think that's been Putin's lifeline. I want the Europeans dependent on the United States for that, not him. We're also going to turn the screws on the Iranians. The Iranians have been one of Putin's biggest benefactors, and they've benefited from Biden's approach there. So we'll use the leverage that we have, but the goal is going to be a sustainable peace that does not reward aggression.
What do you say to the argument that Xi Jinping is watching the U.S. response to Ukraine to game out how the U.S. would respond if China invaded Taiwan? President Biden has said that U.S. forces would defend Taiwan if China invaded. Would you do the same? Would you order the U.S. military to defend Taiwan?
Well, two things. So first, how does China view this? I mean, it's somewhat speculative. I think what they would like to see in Russia-Ukraine is a multi-year stalemate and quagmire where the West is pouring in $100 billion, another $200 billion of weapons. Our stocks continue to decline. They don't really care about the Russians. Russia will be more dependent on China as a result of that. So I think that's what Xi would like to see ideally. Now, in terms of Taiwan, that is a significant interest of the United States. Taiwan is a strong ally. Taiwan is important for us economically and for a variety of other reasons. Also, a potential Chinese attack on Taiwan successfully would have big reverberations in the Asia Pacific. But our policy is going to be very simple. We're going to deter that from happening. China respects hard power. If you have hard power, if you have strong alliances with the Japanese, I visited there a few months ago. The Koreans and the Japanese are getting along now. They never used to get along because they both see the threat posed by China. So we're going to work together. We're going to be much stronger. We're going to project power, and we're going to
America's the great unifier.
Let's talk about some issues here in the United States. You've been asked by this by a number of members of conservative media, and you have yet to give a yes or no answer. You recently signed a 6-week abortion ban in Florida. Yes or no, would you support that as a nationwide ban?
So I said I'm pro-life. I will be a pro-life president, and we will support pro-life policies. At the same time, I look at what's going on in the Congress, and I don't see them making very much headway. I think the danger from Congress is if we lose the election, they're going to try to nationalize abortion up until the moment of birth. And in some liberal states, you actually have post-birth abortions. And I think that that's wrong. Also, with respect to the military thing that we talked about, we're going to reverse the abortion tourism policy.
Guys, I'm sorry. This is the most normal Republican, right? This is the most appealing non-fascist Republican they could trot out. This doesn't even hit the civility politics metrics.
To do funerals, and so we're going to
just
continue
unhinged.
To stand for life, and we're going to make sure that everybody knows that.
So I asked the Desantis campaign what exactly the governor was referring to when he referred to post-birth abortion. They said it was a reference to when an infant survives an abortion procedure and life-saving medical care is not provided. Much more of my interview with Governor Desantis coming, including my asking
What do you
him what he
mean?
makes of the
And what did you
perception
respond?
from
Did you
political
push back to
South-
it? Bro, he
in the
sucked his
2024
cock
race. We have
harder
more
than Fox
from
News
Columbia, South
does.
Carolina next.
What is going on? Why is he fucking glazing him
Tourists
harder
that
than...
turn into scientists.
Why is he glazing him harder than Fox News does in certain instances? We know little Rhonda doesn't conduct any interviews on television that don't glaze him, right? He only does interviews if the interviewer is glazing him. It's wild to me that Jake Tapper was like, I know you haven't even gone on some of the Fox News shows due to how bad you are at responding to any kind of pushback. So we'll give you no pushback whatsoever. We'll give you an easy peasy ass interview, which is weird because it's significantly more clippable if they do shit on him. Because if they shit on him, then Fox News and all the right wing can go, oh my God, they're terrified of Ron DeSantis. That's why they're fucking attacking him. This positive ass interview works in Trump's favor. Trump could say, look at the Clinton News Network. They don't want me, folks. They're so scared of me that they're not even asking Rhonda any questions that might be considered hard hitting. Please lose the hat. You're no veteran. Excuse me, brother. I'll have you fucking know that I served this goddamn country in the Korea War. And you will not get me to take my Korean War hat off. I didn't steal this goddamn valor. I earned it. That's right, the Democratic People's Republic. You have your strongest soldier, you have your bravest soldier right here. Now you best recognize and thank me for my motherfucking service. Right now. I mean, I've done ironically, between me and Ron DeSantis, we've done a similar amount of service. He was like a JAG lawyer for the Navy, right? I did not serve in the military, but Pretty much the same. It was a jagoff. Wait, this motherfucker really thinks I served. That's pretty funny. He said, "Did you really?" There's no shot this guy, I mean, that's crazy. He's memeing, right? Yeah, I did, bro. I did. I served for the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. I already told you I did. Why don't you believe me? What do you mean? I'm actually the youngest looking 85-year-old you've ever seen in your entire life. It's because I have the walking treadmill.
Damn, this guy's good.